Warning.
Watch very closely now. 3, 2, 1. Bzow! Check that out.
The following podcast features terrible jokes.
You know you can use Hot Wheels cars when you need to make a saving throw in D&D? Every car is die-cast.
Usually about board games.
We want the fun. Gotta have that fun.
Must insist that no one attempt to recreate any joke performed on this podcast.
We had less technical issues than $1 million company.
All right!
This is Boards and Swords.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Memorial Day to everyone out there. It is Monday. It's time for a show. Welcome to Boards and Swords. This is a podcast featuring bad jokes, good folks, and some tabletop games. Who am I? I'm one of your hosts. My name is Chris Renshaw. I'm going to toss it over there to my partner in crime, Mr. Philip Herbig.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Like Chris said, welcome to Monday. We're here. We're here. I'm going to introduce our guest. You can see his name above his picture. His name is Will. He's from one of the greatest gaming companies to ever exist.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve Jackson Games. Okay. With their beautiful title of Munchkin, which brought me into like the world of modern tabletop gaming. So that's where's my hand? Right there. Right there. That's Will.
Did you mostly
Will.
play Sorry before that and like Monopoly and Chutes and Ladders?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys didn't try to pronounce my last name because people don't usually get it right the first time.
I've learned
I'll say it for you. I'll say it for you this one time. Will Schoonover. It's got a K sound in it, even though it's spelled SCH.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my name. You may have seen my name on the credits of various board games and other things.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
Almost 20 years.
So for those that haven't paid attention to their board game boxes, why don't you give us just a brief summary of what you've done in the past?
So I tried to have a career in radio for a few years, and I was very frustrated with that. And I was already volunteering as the Men in Black program for Steve Jackson Games back in the early 2000s. And they posted that they had an art director opening. And I was like, well, I hate my job. I've been passed up for the same promotion 3 times now. I will take a wild stab at it. Why not? And unknown to me, they were also trying to make an in-house podcast, which I'm sure didn't hurt my chances. And this was 2006.
Oh, wow.
And they gave me a job as the art director, and I moved to Austin. We were already thinking about moving to Austin because my wife has family down there. And I started out as art director, so if you have a Munchkin product from like 2007, my name might be in there as the art director. And eventually, they gave me extra jobs to do, and one of those was playtest coordinator, and eventually game developer because of all the help I was giving on game development as the playtest coordinator. So the very first thing I was game developer on was Munchkin Quest, the Munchkin board game that came out in like 2010, I believe. Maybe
sounds about right.
A little earlier than that. It's a little fuzzy, all that stuff. And then I spent 5 years at Steve Jackson Games and was wearing a lot of hats. And miniatures gaming, like I talked to Chris about right before we went live, is my like core hobby. It's the thing I love the most. I mean, I like board games, I like RPGs, I like card games, but like miniatures, as you can see behind me in the case, they're where I have the most fun. And Privateer Press had a job opening, and they at the moment had only made a couple of board games, and they were well known for War Machine and Hordes, their steampunk fantasy games, and they were hiring for someone to start doing big fancy board games. They wanted to kind of compete with Fantasy Flight and a few of those other companies. So in 2011, I packed up everything I owned, basically, and moved to Seattle. And I was at Privateer for about 10 years, 9.5-ish. And did a little tiny stint with a company that I won't talk about at the moment. And then Steve Jackson Games called me and asked me if I would like to come back and work 100% remote. And Seattle, I love Seattle. I love so much about Seattle, but the housing prices are not low. So my wife and I are both originally from Kansas City. We have family and stuff here. It's fairly cheap to live here compared to other places, especially on the West Coast. So we moved back here, and I've been working for Steve Jackson Games again since 2021. So
Very nice.
coming up next year, I'll have been doing this for 20 years
Wow.
in various roles,
Nice.
but game design development as the majority of that. Oh, and I forgot to mention, at the moment, I am the Munchkin line editor, and technically the Car Wars line editor, but most of my time and energy is spent on Munchkin stuff at the moment.
Yeah, and so I figured I come up with all these different guests for the show, but Philip time and again has declared Munchkin as his like #1 favorite game of all time. So I was like,
Yeah.
all right,
Of all time.
all right, I gotta do him a solid, and
Specifically for a reason from 9 years ago, and I tell the story all the time.
Oh,
and he's
Can I
just
tell the story again, Chris? Can I
Yes,
tell the
go
story
for
again?
it.
Because you've heard it.
I've never
Okay.
heard the story.
See, Will's never heard it, so we have.
Yeah.
Okay, so
if you're gonna tell the
9
story
years ago.
again, with it being having the Munchkin line editor on would be the time.
Okay. 9 years ago, actually, May 21st, 9 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Because my Facebook popped up with a, hey, you remember this? We're on our, we took our annual mancation and turned it into our friend's bachelor party. So, we're at this kind of cool cabin in somewhere in Virginia, and we go on a hike, come back, everyone's showered, playing games and getting food and everything, and there were a bunch of people upstairs. They started setting up like I think frat party games and stuff. Like we had there was some flip cup and some beer pong and all that kind of stuff. And like 6 of us didn't really want to do that, and we found a copy of Munchkin Deluxe downstairs. So we threw that out on the table. I'm like, hey, you guys want to play this? This game's great. The point of the game is to kind of be an asshole to your friends. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that out, we start playing it, and we go through a couple rounds and all this kind of stuff. And slowly, you could kind of feel this energy downstairs make its way up the stairs and start infecting. It's like that pie in the Looney Tunes commercial
Oh,
where
yeah.
the steam just like starts beckoning people down the stairs. Very slowly, the 8 people that are upstairs slowly filter down one by one. And now I've got a crowd of 14 people, and we're like, okay, if you die, it's my turn. And we're jumping in and out, and everyone's learning how to play this game. And I'm like, this is why Munchkin, this is why tabletop gaming, and then Munchkin in particular, is so amazing, because it just brings people in together.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
had
the
no
energy of a
cat-
game
no.
that's fun will be a
Yes.
magnet.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely had. It's amazing how bachelor parties and Munchkin go so well together, because I had both my bachelor party and one of my friends' bachelor party. Both I was big into Munchkin at the time, and so there was definitely a dominating presence there.
Well, it's also a very easy game to teach. Right?
That
Someone
that
sits
does
down
help too.
and you just tell them, draw a card. What does it say? Maybe you had to hand them some cards and kind of explain, like, that's a weapon. If they've played Diablo or a half a dozen other video game RPGs, they kind of understand I have places I can put these cards. I'm carrying a sword. I'm wearing a helmet. That kind of stuff. And then when people start being mean to each other, the game starts getting rowdy.
The best part is always when you've got 4 people at level 9, and one person pulls up a monster. Oh, bam! Plus 10 to the monster, plus 5 to the monster, minus 5 to you, plus 8 to the monster. And then the
Although
next
you
guy
can-
inevitably always wins.
You can screw that up too. I've seen people be too mean in a game of Munchkin and take someone who is at level 7 to the win without anybody noticing, because all the extra monsters are extra levels, and they're like, "Yeah, we were really mean to you," and that person's like, "I'm still winning," and everyone's like, "Well, can we stop him?" And it's like, "No, well then we just gave him 3 levels that he wins, and then okay, we're done."
But we're gonna get back to talking about more Munchkin. But first, we have some news.
News.
All right. Hey, Philip. What do you do? So you remember the game POGs?
Yes.
What do you do with people that cheat in playing POGs? You throw them in the slammer.
That was one of those bad jokes that we were warned about, right?
Yes.
Yes. I'm
Yep.
gonna give him that one though, because I smiled and chuckled. I didn't groan.
So this was actually announced on April Fool's Day, but A, it wasn't a joke, and B, we now have more details on it. But Roxley Games, the people that make like Brass Birmingham, Dice Throne, all that, they've come out with a new board game, or they're coming out with a game, Slam Throne, that is basically POGs. So with a little bit, there's some tweaks in there, but I love this article. Just in case your birth year starts with a 2, let me explain. POGs were a cultural phenomenon back in the 90s. While it was theoretically a game, it was mostly just for collecting. I beg to differ. I distinctly remember my favorite being the Power Ranger set that I had. Good times. So fast forward back with Slam Throne. We now have the full rulebook ready to go. Both players. So the original game was like it started with like milk bottle caps. Was as and you would that's where people would do different designs on them, and you take this metal coin and slam it down, and like you wanted them to scatter but stay on like a mat, basically, and like that's you were trying to see who could get the most. The way this works is so players are going to have a health stack that's in front of them. So your stack of pogs is your health. And then you go back and forth using their hero slammer and throwing the slammer at the top of the stack. Any health caps that land flipped are counted as damage. Players go back and forth until one player is dead. However, there's a little more than just that. Each slammer has a special ability. At the start of the game, you choose whether you use the catch ability or their passive ability. Once chosen, I think it says it can be changed, but I think it's like can't be changed. But basically, the passive ability is always in effect, easy peasy, but the catch ability is a little trickier, so it's a little bit more powerful. But in order to activate a catch ability, you have to throw the slammer, deal at least 1 damage, and catch the slammer before it hits the table. So if you manage to do that, then you get to trigger your catch ability. Like, for instance, the one in the thing here, it's Entangle. So if you catch it, your opponent must attack with their offhand on their next turn. So, whereas one of the passives is just at the start of your turn, flip and call. On success, you heal 1, so you just get like 1 pog back. So it's not meant to be a high-level, deeply strategic, multifaceted game, but let's be honest, it's fun to throw stuff at other stuff. Plus, it'll provide some deep-seated nostalgia to a whole generation. So, yeah, I'm getting this. Doesn't even matter if it's gonna like what it's gonna cost. What is it? I'm getting this.
For the nostalgia bit alone, I mean, I popped up the Wikipedia page real quick, and it's like there was a World Pog Federation.
Oh yeah, no, because I had that. I had the mat for the World Pog Federation because it was an official neoprene mat for the World Pog Federation.
There was a whole organized tournament playstyle.
No, and I know around when in my age that the POG phase was because Hardee's was doing a promotion with Apollo 13 because that movie was out in theaters, and you could get phases of the Saturn V rocket that it was huge when I was a kid, but I bet this thing was only like 1.5 feet tall or whatever. And it was just a giant tube that you could put all your pogs in.
Yep. I've got a pog slammer on that corkboard behind me
Ooh.
right now.
Oh, nice.
There's a holographic Tick, the superhero.
Yeah.
The big blue guy. He's one of my favorite cartoon/superheroes. And at some point in the 90s, like I didn't collect pogs, I didn't play the game, but I came across a Tick slammer from some promotional things from Taco Bell or whatever, and I've had it all these years, and it's one of the things I stuck on there. It's very small. But there's a blue thing right there.
Yep, I kind of see it.
Slammer.
It's funny because it was like, I don't know, it was just ridiculous where you just had a bunch of random things for whatever you were into because everything had pogs.
Oh yeah.
So it was like pop figures. It was like collecting pop figures where it's just like the variety of different pop culture. I'm trying to remember. I don't even know what ended up. it would not surprise me if my parents still had my stuff and it just got hidden in a box somewhere because I don't know what happened to it. But anyways, yeah, I just thought like we had a tease of it and I was kind of like, ha ha, that's funny. And then it was like, no, we're serious. It's coming back. So
I'm
No
kind
idea
of
ever truly
liking.
dies.
I'm kind of liking that trend of like, haha, April Fools, and then 3 months later, it's actually a thing.
yeah. We used April Fools to see if you really wanted it.
Which is the perfect time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I took a bus to the local watch museum. Really smooth ride. Even ran like clockwork. So this I just saw and I had to talk about because it's just amazing. D&D fan builds badass moving battle map for players to fight on. So it's a moving D&D map that's all like clockwork cogs and stuff that you rotate on and the whole thing moves around. So one D&D fan has created the ultimate moving battle map, a plywood clock tower with moving gears. An invention comes from Gavin Scott, founder of D&D resource website Red Cat Press, who shared their work on Reddit on May 12th. He said the intricate design probably took 4 hours to make, which, given what I'm seeing here, that's pretty impressive.
That's.
I mean, I'm sure this was probably like laser cut, but still.
Yeah.
He crafted this map for a high-stakes clock tower battle. The party was attending the grand opening of a large clock tower, and built by a local university of artificers, and noticed some people slipping into the clock tower from the roof. A local crime lord who'd been caught causing the party problems had sabotaged the structure so the clock face would shatter at midnight and fall into the crowd below. So the adventurers only had 10 rounds to fight off these thugs and reverse the sabotage. So, and we imagine them moving pieces through some extra chaos into D&D strategic combat. So here's a better kind of face-down picture of it. So,
Oh, scroll. Oh, yeah.
I
Oh,
was
that's
wondering
nice.
if you were going to bring up the World of Smog, Her Majesty's Her Majesty's Service vibes, because that was the same kind of thing, but I don't remember if they were interlocked.
I don't. They weren't connected, no, but they did turn
Yeah.
on every turn. Yeah. I like. You said in there like they had 10 rounds.
Yeah. Because it was
Yeah,
like you had a minute, arriving 1 minute before midnight, a round being 6 seconds, so 10 rounds.
I kind of like the whole the like, hey, there's a time limit.
Yeah.
Stop trying to do fancy shit.
There's a
and just get it
countdown
going.
clock.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of those things where it's like advice for like DMs where it's like you give your party like a countdown and then don't remind them of it again. So it's like the sorcerer announces like by next sunrise this town's going to be destroyed or whatever, and then you don't talk about it again, and then the players just like if they go off and do other things and then come back and like, why is the town destroyed? Like he said he was going to do it.
I'm disappointed there's no video showing this thing in motion.
I'm wondering if there is, and I'm just not. Yeah, that is true. So the map is but it's a plywood base with paper cutouts of a hex grid covering the components. Then laser cut plywood gears were attached to the base with screws. More paper grid was added to the gears, and then some large cardboard gears glued on for just as cosmetic. This was to emphasize the rotation and maximize chaos in game. Oh, okay, here, the original Reddit post has apparently a video.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if it'll load.
Oh, that's wicked.
Oh my gosh, that's intense. I don't know how much of that's actually if that's coming through. But it's just
I can see it.
he could just move. He just moves the one gear on the side here, and it just moves everything. What's great is like if you're off on one of these sides. See, I would be putting ledges in that like knock you into like so that when your player gets knocked up against one, it like almost pushes you off to like another gear.
Yeah.
But that's just because I want to like make things difficult.
It's very video gamey, right? For there to be a thing coming at you as the ground is moving below your feet.
Yeah. But like the only sad part is like it's hard to reuse that.
Yeah.
You know, you use it once and then you're like, okay, well, you almost just want to like run. I would like bring it to a game store and just run like a game every now and then just to be able to use it. It could even be the same adventure, but you know, you'd have people pay to play. Like I want to play on the Clockwork game. Just spend the rest of the episode just watching this thing turn.
Right? I'm just this is like a lava lamp, man. We're just sitting here watching like
Okay. All right. I gotta throw some shade on the next one. But how is it Vin Diesel hasn't made a movie called Invincible yet? Okay, so this is the one. This is the one negative, mildly political post we're gonna do. The article I've got linked here, I linked this one because it's a good summary of everything that happens. But Goodman Games announced that they're doing a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign, and the whole internet kind of went, huh? And then they tried to backpedal. But so the article I've linked in here that you can see in the show notes is from Rascal. It says much ink spilt in the defense of bigots. So that just kind of sets the stage there. So we're gonna jump forwards and backwards a little bit. So they announced back in the beginning of May that they are going to revise, because Goodman Games has been doing this popular like original adventurers revisited series where they look at old, like the classic D&D adventures and remake them into like 5e and some other systems and such. Well, they announced that they are going to be doing this apparently popular adventure called City State of the Invincible Overlord, which was originally produced by a group called Judges Guild. It's what in this article notes that was probably their most popular entry. It's a campaign setting that became their leading product through the late 1970s and effectively launched Judges Guild as a successful business. However, the whole internet went kind of because the person behind Judges Guild now, Bob Bledsaw Jr., who's son of the co-founder Robert Bledsaw, he's not a great guy. Like not a good guy at all. Like you think. Like so you read all this and you're like, that sounds pretty bad, but clearly it can't be that bad. I actually went and saw a Facebook post where this guy like was talking, and it was just like, like we're talking, like I'm not even. Trust me, it is not worth your time to go find it. But like, he's basically, there's the standard. Like I was expecting like the keep politics out of games kind of that kind of standard stuff. Nope. This is a lot of there's the standard anti-woke stuff, but then there's, white men are the people that founded this hobby, and we're being gate-kept out of it. I'm paraphrasing, but just like it just gets worse. Like pretty short of calling people racial slurs. That's about the level of the bar we're setting here. But this guy had been this way for a while. So back in February 2020. They confirmed that that Goodman Games was ending their relationship with Judges Guild when all these allegations first started coming out. And then now they're like, we're never going to work with him again. And then they decided to work with him again. And then people were like, wait, you said you would never work with him again, but you're going to work with him again. And they're like, well, yeah, but this thing really should be a thing. We really want to preserve this setting. So my personal opinion is I like to build bridges rather than walls. I think there's been a lot of experiences in the last couple years of America of people building walls amongst each other. I'd rather encourage dialogue, encourage conversation, get people talking, and have people converge on what I hope is a unified perspective for how we can all move forward in a collaborative way. That is a take that you can have. So, and it gets worse for Goodman Games because not only, like, keep in mind, they don't have to do any of this. Like, this is a setting, like, and I think they even say, I had this thought, and I think they even say it later in this article, where it's like, they could have reprinted this setting by just doing like a spiritual sequel, you know, legally distinct enough, and be like, this is the spiritual sequel to the original. Boom. It's our property. We controlled it, and nobody's getting any money off of it except for us kind of thing. And yet we've still fulfilled the, like, we're preserving RPG history kind of piece. Like, that's all this would have taken. And there would never have been a controversy. But instead, apparently in 2014, Judges Guild had done a Kickstarter and raised $85,000 to create a new version of this game. And Goodman Games is like, we're gonna raise money with our crowdfunding campaign to help those people, those backers that packed that and never got anything, and we're going to take on giving them their refunds. And then, like, this goes in deep. Like, I recommend reading the article. I'm not going to get in there, but like, the plan was, because everyone was like, well, I don't want my money going to a bigot, and they're like, yes, well, they're going to create an escrow account for royalties due to Judges Guild from the sale of their 5e city slate of the Invincible Overlord. The company would immediately assume responsibility for refunding those who backed the 2014 Kickstarter using the royalties. None of it would be paid directly to Judges Guild. Like this, they're like trying to accounting their way out of like funding bigotry, basically. And it's just like, I'd never even heard of this adventure before. You know, I'm sure there's people older than I that maybe grew up on 1st and 2nd edition D&D that might recognize it, but like, it's clearly not like that popular. So, and yeah, and it just keeps like, further you read, the more you're just kind of like, huh? Like, you know, it's, I've played, like Rusty Beetle said, I played several Judges Guild games back in the 80s, my favorite being the Dark Tower, which Dark Tower was one of their previous Goodman Games releases, and I do remember that being a very big thing. So I'd heard of that, you know. Yeah, like I said, there's building bridges and then there's financing bigotry, right? So this wouldn't be a story except for the backpedaling. That was the main reason I wanted to bring it up in here, because it's just kind of stunning to me, the levels of backpedaling that they were kind of doing, and they're still in this train. They haven't backed down from this at all. That they're fully set on their ways here. So I'll be very. I think it's supposed to be. I think in June is when it releases. Let's see if I can pull up. So I'm very curious to see what the actual if it's going to back, because there's 21 days. So yeah, that would be like around the 16th, 17th of June. So I'll be curious to see, because there's people bitching on the internet, and then there's like, are people going to put their money where their mouth is, kind of thing. So
unfortunately, that article is behind a paywall partially.
Yeah, well, that's Rascal does some great stuff, but again, this was just it's a good summary, but it is all stuff that's just been on, like, if you go search the DCC RPG subreddit, I think a lot of it is there as well.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, there's a new gang in the news going around building structures onto buildings' homes. They're calling it a deck building gang. So, Philip, they're already bringing more games or more decks into what's going to become our new favorite game.
Yes.
So, 2 new starter decks revealed for the Gundam card game.
Second favorite. Second favorite.
All right, second favorite. I'll give it to you.
Second favorite.
I'll give you second. Only because we've got here.
Yeah, don't mind me. I'm just hanging out. Have you guys got to play the Gundam card game?
I have, yes.
Okay, because I know they've done some promotional events and demo things, and they
Yeah,
just did one recently, I think.
our
in the
local
UK.
our local store got like demo decks that they couldn't sell, but like it's just like a
Yeah.
Char and Amuro deck, and like play it. If you've ever played the One Piece card game, it is fundamentally the same game except for like there's a couple of different mechanics for Gundam in there, but it's very similar, which is fine with me because the game's not bad, and so it takes like a okay game to like, oh my god, this has got this Gundam, and here's this Gundam, and there's that thing. Like at that point, you get to like Pokemon. Like I don't care. The game is like secondary to the fact of collecting all the cards.
Yes.
But Bandai, so they revealed a second set that's coming out, Dual Impact, and along with that set will be 2 new starter decks. This time including Iron-Blooded Orphans and Clan Unity, which is the clan Iron-Blooded Orphans is obviously for the Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans series, but the Clan Unity is based off of the G-Quux, which that's the one that's
I'm
going
watching
on.
that show.
Yeah, that's the one
I
going
still
on
don't
right
know
now.
What's going on?
Yeah.
7 episodes in, and I'm still confused because I'm not a giant Gundam fan, and I haven't watched a ton of other shows, and that show is full of references of. But what if this person had a different life in a different alternate universe, but still showed up and made you happy because you're a Gundam fan? It's an entertaining show, regardless. But
yeah, I will say having known some of those references, like it doesn't add that much. It's more of a. It's like when you watch a Marvel series and you've watched all the Marvel series, and then someone random pops into the background. Like one of the guys was like, "Oh, that's the guy from Zeta Gundam," and like it doesn't. The fact that he was in it doesn't affect anything. You're just like, "Oh, he was that guy. Now he's doing this." You just get that kind of like, "Oh shit!" Like responding like, "I recognize that guy," but that's about it. It doesn't really.
The feeling I get from it, not to derail your news too much, but I went to see the Full Metal Alchemist movie in theaters without having watched most of the show. And so I was in a theater with 100 and something hardcore fans that knew every reference. And the movie is set in an alternate dimension where all the same characters exist, but they're different people.
Yeah.
And so every time a character would walk on screen, the theater would erupt in laughter or whatever. And I was like, who's that guy? He's got a mustache. Am I supposed to know who that is? So I get the same vibe from G-Quux of, oh, this means something to the real fans. But to me, it's just, it's just a character, doing a thing. And I don't know anything about them.
Yeah. I just want to know still why it's called G-Quux, because that's the weirdest name.
It is the weirdest. It is the weirdest name.
But this also gives me hope of the fact of like they're going to be able to quick turn some of these to go with the series. So it's like we're doing it kind of the way I would hope, where it's like this year's Gundam, like okay, a set or two down the road is now that there are going to be cards based on that. So right when the kind of the iron gets cold of you're coming down from withdrawal from watching the series, and then the set comes out and you're like, well, now I got to go watch the series again so that I remember everything. Also, there's a couple people I know that there's a couple people that like some of the only Gundams they've seen is like Iron-Blooded Orphans. And so I was like, by the way, and they're like, oh man, I think what I saw in Discord was IBO. I hear it's super good, but I have not. That's one I haven't seen yet.
A lot of my friends love that, and I tried to watch it, and it didn't grab me the way that it grabbed all of them.
That's fair.
I've seen it 2 episodes, I think, and I'm like, okay, cool, it's a Gundam show. Good job. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, for me, I'm
much more excited about the miniatures game that they've promised but they've done
Fair.
what I'm going to call a middling job at showing off any actual details for.
Well, because it's not coming out till next year.
Yeah, I know, but they put out 2 promotional images, and one of them had a pile of D6s and one had a pile of D10s. So it feels like they don't even know what the game is yet, but they're promoting it because they have the models done.
Yeah.
Which worries me.
Well, because honestly, that's probably what the state of the game is they have,
Yeah.
because they have the models, it's just smaller, and then, you know, they're probably still developing a lot of the game, but I do know that
Yeah,
a lot of those collector starters that come with the miniature, those are going to sell for so much money. Like our local store was like, we didn't get any. Like we got allocated 0. Because Bandai also does not make a lot of product. Like they go on you have to order 6 months in advance. Like when this article went live, it was like a day later orders were due. And, you know, so like those things are probably going to be like, I think they retail for like 35. They're going to go for like over $100, I bet, a single fit piece. But
yeah, I was hoping to get one of those just out of curiosity for the model.
yeah,
because at $35, right, that's not much to pay for a miniature.
Oh yeah, no.
And it would give a sneak peek at everything. But if the hardcore fans are gonna scoop all those up, I'm probably never even gonna see one.
Not even necessarily the hardcore fans, just scalpers. But
yeah, those two.
By the way, Darren says you didn't tell me you were gonna talk with the great Will.
Does this person know who I am?
I know he's an older gamer, so I'm assuming he's probably familiar with your work at Privateer Press.
Possible.
But yeah, I'm interested in the miniatures game as a miniatures gamer, but also as more of a Gundam fan than that. I'm more interested.
It has that X-Wing property of I bought the thing and I set it on my desk and I look at it all the time.
Right.
I don't care about playing X-Wing, but I have a tiny Millennium Falcon on my desk and it's cool. And the Gundam thing is like, if they would have just made that line of tiny Gundam models without a game attached to it, I'm sure it would have sold perfectly fine.
Oh, because it does.
Has a game attached to it.
Because it does. Because they sell the bigger models.
Yeah.
But and it'll do well because Bandai models are real good as far as like the way you put them together compared to like other games. But for me, it's like, given the vast majority of stuff there is, it's like with the Marvel Crisis Protocol, and you know, like I want to see X character come out, and it's like you just have to wait for them to get to it. Whereas I feel like with a card game, there's going to be a faster turnover because they're going to be making so many sets a year. So it's like I don't want to wait 4 years before they get to like, you know, an Epion model or whatever. I still need a Windmill Gundam though.
There'll be someone out there complaining because their niche Gundam side character that's their favorite from some show that only got 1 season 10 years ago hasn't gotten a card yet.
It's gonna be the Kangaroo Gundam from G Gundam.
No. There is no better Gundam than the Nether Gundam, or as I call it, the Windmill Gundam. This is the greatest Gundam ever made.
Nice.
Oh, so do you, so you remember G Gundam, because that's from G Gundam.
Yeah.
G Gundam was all about like
we're gonna
cultural stereotypes.
Yeah, cultural stereotypes.
Yeah, you got to look up the American Gundam. Okay?
Oh yeah, that was the cowboy. He was the cowboy with boxer gloves.
No, he was a football player. Those were football pads.
Oh.
Yeah, those are football pads and helmet and boxing gloves and a pair of pistols.
Yeah, but the pilot had a cowboy hat.
That's right. The pilot was a cowboy, and then the British Gundam had the giant guard hat with his rifle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were talking about the miniatures game. I'm just imagining how expensive it would be to like scale that up to perfect grade model size.
Oh yeah. Well, there's rules for it.
Possible. All you gotta do is build a hex grid or whatever big enough.
There's a fan-made project of using the smaller, the 1/66 scale, but I mean, you could just easily roll those up. It's more of the fact of Do you want to be using your $400 Gundam
Yeah, do I
model?
want my $400 Gundam model to be out there like that?
Now, granted,
why
some
not-
of us
why
have
not?
paid it just as much for our Warhammer armies, but
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And I will contest, you guys. You were both wrong about the greatest Gundam. I only own one real Gundam kit, and it's Bear Guy. Bear Guy is the best Gundam.
Fair guy.
I had to get up from my desk and walk around it
All
because
right,
Bear Guy is on a shelf
you
on the
got
other side
me.
of the room. But
You got me.
Bear Guy. The entire concept of Bear Guy as a Gundam. I don't have the 7-Eleven promotional one, which I would love to have because that's just extra ridiculousness. I just have a regular yellow one, but Bear Guy is best Gundam.
All right, fair. One last story. I realized why Space Marines in 40K have such big armor pieces. It's because defending the Emperor is a big responsibility for them to shoulder. Philip, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it, and I love it at the same time.
Speaking of shoulders,
Yeah, that was part of the.
Yeah.
So, we teased about it last time. I was really hoping this wasn't going to be the case. I was hoping in my heart of hearts that was like they're not going to release a new edition of Heresy. They're just going to make like a new starter box. That would be that's all I need is just like a new starter box. Keep the rules the same. Nope, they full on went. Hey, we're going to do like 40K in every 3 years. They didn't say every 3, but 3 years from the last edition, we have a new edition of Warhammer 40K. Or not 40K, of Horus Heresy. And I went from like all of this happened in the course of about 30 minutes to an hour of going like, I hate this, I don't want it, to maybe I'll just like, well, it went to, well,
What are the stages of grief? Denial, bargaining, acceptance.
yeah,
but it went to like, I'm never going to play this, to, well, I mean, I did buy that Supernova bag for Nova Open, and maybe it'll come in that, to, well, maybe I'll just get the core rulebook if I don't get that, to, like, now I'm like, well, maybe I just want to get the models anyway.
Did you watch the live presentation? Well, the real presentation, the full thing.
I didn't watch the full thing. I watched the trailer, and that was
Okay.
about it.
So if you watch the full, the thing with Eddie and
the presentation.
Adam giving the presentation, at the end they get the models out and put them on the table between them,
Yeah.
and show you the size of that dreadnought versus the existing
Yeah,
Horus
no.
Heresy dreadnoughts.
I-
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So if you've been hearing all us making jokes about shoulder pads, that's because the big theme is the Saturnine is the name of the box set, and basically this is a set of new Terminator armor that was made around the planet Saturn, and so it's called Saturnine armor, but it is very old school looking, and it is very shoulder pad like. Those shoulder, very much shoulder pads, but also I really like the detail. Like this is like I'm never gonna be able to paint this, but just like look at the flame detail, and then it kind of like scolding off there. But what Will's talking about is the chunk that is the Saturnine dreadnought.
Yeah.
Like here you go. This is your normal Space Marine. And here's the Saturnine dreadnought.
Goes up to its knee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard.
I'm excited about those because I have a couple of the old metal ones of that variety, but they just kind of made as Terminators back in like the 90s, and they never really explained why these Terminators looked weird. They were just Terminators. They had a power fist and a combi bolter kind of thing and big dumb shoulder pads. And I love that they brought that design back and then justified it by, no, there's force fields in those shoulder pads. That's why they're so big.
Yeah.
That makes, I'm just like looking at the Space Marine. What a Space Marine's like? What, 9 feet tall?
It depends on if you're talking Primaris or not. I think it's around.
Yeah,
I think
Let's
Heresy.
talk your average grunt.
I think it's supposed to be around 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Okay, so 8 feet tall, and then that's like what, an extra 4 feet of shoulder pad above there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah.
You just made your hitbox bigger.
Yeah. But it's okay. Maybe it's like Batman, where it's like the yellow in the emblem is the most armored part of it because they want you to like shoot that instead.
Oh, shoot at the yeah. Well, as long as it doesn't turn into remember the Daredevil live action when he finally got his uniform
Yeah.
and the guy was like, "Yeah, the red parts aren't really armored." Dude, the whole damn uniform's red.
But yeah, I'm seeing this now, and I'm just like, yeah. Like if it didn't have these models, this would probably be a bust. But so, and it was funny because I heard a friend of mine that works at the game store that was like, "Oh, you guys make such a big fit about the old world reusing old models, but when Heresy does it, it's no big deal." And I was like, "There's a difference, all right? Old world literally takes this. It's not a we took these old models and made them new again. Oh, if you look at the models they sell for old world, it looks like they just found them in the back of a warehouse from the 90s.
They did. They put the years on those sprues. You can confirm exactly when those sprues were made. They don't change the years, right? They don't file the serial numbers off the sprues.
Yeah. So they just literally sold.
yeah.
This is they at least remolded it, where it's like we took an old design and made a new version of it and then sold it. Like,
I don't like that turret.
oh, the in place turret.
The
Yeah.
Arachne, the giant tarantula.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The quad
I'm
accelerator.
just looking, I'm like, what's inside of that? Is that a space marine who walks in there and starts shooting? Is it remote controlled? It's got that little window platform like some of the dreadnoughts do. Like there's a dead space marine in there, not dead.
There could be a servitor. There could just be a
Oh, a little
human
floating
brain
skull. Just
attached to something. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably. Could be any number of things. It's big, beautiful, and packs a serious punch.
I'm sure somewhere in the book it will explain in intricate detail exactly who manned
Yes.
the giant cannon turret.
Oh yeah, I love. Also, I love them being like, "Oh, this book is going to be so full of lore," and it's like, yeah, probably the same lore that's in the books I have here. Just with the
It'll be a
addition of
different
this, just with the addition of the Saturnine armor bits.
Yeah.
But
21 6-sided die. I don't think that's enough. I've seen you guys play.
I mean, you can make do. But yeah, all these models look really cool, because like then you get you get not only just the Saturnine Terminators, but then you get the Saturnine Praetor, who comes like look at the hammer, and the embedded pistol, which there was a couple other options. Like I saw there's the different shoulder pad options, but
I'm more excited about the older armored Marines.
Oh, the
becoming
Mark
in plastic
IIs?
kits. Yeah. My favorite thing about Horus Heresy becoming popular was that the Beaky Marines got a modern kit in that last starter. That was just like as the very first Space Marines I ever saw or got my hands on in the in the 90s, being able to just think about this as being modern kits finally after the technology in air quotes of plastic they used for those very first ones in 89 or 90 or whatever. It's just cool to see what they do with the technology of all those classic designs.
yeah, hang on a sec. The maybe stabilized now. I think my internet dropped because everybody got all robot-y for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, everything looks to be okay now, but yeah, I know these are Iron Warriors, but they remind me of just Cylons, just the way that they're painted with the red visor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, yeah, it is kind of neat. I remember like everyone talking about the Beaky Marines, but it being like, why are we focusing on the Beaky Marines when that was very much at the end of the Heresy, that being so popular, but yet it was all everybody had for the second edition for a while. So that was mostly what you saw on people's tabletops. So there's also what was it? They announced the new, was it the Fell something? That was one of the tanks that was
Fellblade.
Fellblade. Yeah, it was like it's
Yeah.
a Forge World tank that's now getting a plastic release for like the first time and for the first time ever.
It's also a large tank.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it when you see it just by itself, but when you see it next to another model.
All right, now I have to go back and watch that thing. Dang it! And now I'm like, I'm probably getting this box in the Supernova bag, but a part of me is like, yeah, but you could have it for Nova if you buy it ahead of time.
There you go.
And I'm like, dang it! Games Workshop, why you do me like this? Also, I just need them to make a Heresy kill team, and that would make my life a lot better too, because that would be awesome. I've just been playing a lot of skirmish games more than like big army games.
Yeah, skirmish games are, as I get older, they become my go-to thing because of time invested in playing them and in getting together the models
Yeah.
for them. It's just so much easier to get together. Like I just went to a friend's house over the last 2 days and played Arena Rex and Relic Blade, and then a Relic Blade spin-off game called Cursebreaker. And Arena Rex, my army, in quotation marks, was 5 models.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like throwing down a Horus Heresy 2,000-point game and having dozens and dozens of Space Marines and other vehicles and stuff on a 6x4 table.
Yep. Or even when you don't have that many models, and you can also spend more time on each model instead of like, I gotta quickly like blast a bunch of color on this just to move on to the next 30. That's me with my Thousand Suns kill team that I'm painting right now.
Yeah.
So, all right, but them's the news. So, turning back to talk about Munchkin in particular. You said you've been on the Munchkin line editor but you've been working on Munchkin, ever since you first started. But
yeah, basically.
What has that experience been like? Getting the chance to work on this like really popular. I mean, I know people love it or hate it, but it's one of those games like Magic where it's like, at some point everybody's played, like in the tabletop gaming industry, everybody's played Munchkin.
Yeah, if you've been to a coffee house that has a couple of games sitting on a shelf to the side, there's probably a copy of Monopoly and a copy of Munchkin and maybe some other game that's old and gathering dust and no one's ever touched. But it's really strange to go from the fan side of things to the not fan side of things, because you learn a lot and you also get to see, like, how the sausage is made, so to speak. So you learn a lot of things that kind of take you by surprise by how different it is than you imagine. One of the things that was the most interesting when I first started working at the company is Steve used to just keep documents full of bad puns in themes, and he would come up with a game depending on when that document hit a number of jokes big enough to publish a core set out of. So at one point we were at like trade shows and stuff in the late aughts, and people would be like, what's next? And we were like, well, Steve has a Cowboys document, and he has a Cthulhu document, and he has a Pirates document, and we don't know. Whichever one he finishes first will probably get turned into a playtest set and then become whatever. And all those things eventually came out, but it wasn't like, let's look at trends in the marketplace and, ooh, like zombies is really hot right now and all the Hollywood's talking about zombies a lot. It was more of a, well, what pile of ridiculous puns and terrible humor can we come up with that will justify like creating that first playtest set more than almost any other like factor when it comes to writing some of those core games that have been around for all this time.
Philip, we waited too long to have someone from Steve Jackson Games on the show, because I'm just like, that sounds great.
I mean, we're it's 2025. We're like, oh man, we're like 10 years too late, dude.
Yeah, but also we do every product the way it needs to be done, right? Like Munchkin Shadowrun that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
that one wasn't a hey, let's sit around and wait on this and think about it and mull it over. It was we talked to Catalyst. They're good to go with Munchkin Shadowrun. They gave us PDFs of basically every Shadowrun book from this latest edition and maybe some older ones. And then Devin, the guy who wrote this one, dug through them all and came up with a lot of things. And it's different writing a non-branded Munchkin product than it is writing a branded one, right? Because when Steve sat down to write Munchkin Zombies, he was pulling from the zeitgeist of all zombie movies and stuff. But for Shadowrun 40K, for those kind of things, you're trying to basically give the fans something that they see as familiar, because that's the first part of like it's the worst way to do stand-up comedy, but it's one of the best ways to do like branded product comedy, is just show somebody something that they recognize but put a twist on it.
Right.
Make it like the cover of this game is a riff on the cover of the most recent edition of the Shadowrun RPG.
Oh my gosh, now I gotta find this.
There's a big dragon. There's a flying car zooming by. But in our version, the dragon is using the Space Needle in Seattle as a toothpick. And Spike, our main brand character for Munchkin, is driving the weird Jetsons flying car right there in the middle of the picture. But we also have a couple other Munchkin, like there's a glowing neon sign for go up a level in the background and stuff. So like if you walked into a game store and saw that and were a current Shadowrun fan, you would instantly recognize that cover is the cover of the book at your house. It would be familiar enough, but then you'd see that it was also a little silly. And so even if you didn't know what Munchkin meant, you would get a vibe for, oh, this is some sort of jokey thing about Shadowrun.
I can kind of see it. That doesn't have the full picture, but I see.
Yeah.
Whoops, I guess it helps if I. So I can see it's the sixth world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then, yep, I can see it. I love it.
The other great thing about this game is even if you aren't a Shadowrun fan, I was involved in a preview at last Gen Con for it. And one of the players had never played Shadowrun, but he worked in IT.
Oh, yeah.
And Shadowrun's hacking, references are like cinematic hacking. So they play real fast and loose with concepts that actually exist in internet technologies and stuff.
Yeah.
So we got extra groans out of that guy based on the way that Shadowrun cinematically deals with hacking, and he actually understands what actual network security looks like and that kind of stuff.
So are there any unique because I know like one of my favorite Munchkin game, I will say it is my favorite Munchkin game, is Munchkin Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Mainly because it has an extra win or it's got an extra lose condition. Is there do any of the Shadowruns, do they have any unique mechanics to them to fit the?
Shadowrun has a Matrix track because the Matrix is the internet.
Right.
Shadowrun, So there's some cards sitting next to the board that are tiers of the Matrix, and that you can see them in that picture, the last picture in the preview with the little round tokens.
Ah, okay.
So the Matrix cards have levels, and they have a task to do, like discard some cards from your hand or defeat a monster with something else. And you move your token up, and every level of Matrix that you climb, you get a bonus in combat. And then the final level of the Matrix, level 4, I believe, the backside of that card is the giant computer, God, G period, O period, D period. And it's a level 20 monster. And if you want, you can flip that card over and fight it and win the game.
Oh, wow.
So if you don't have to rely on finding a monster in the regular deck, you kind of know that monster is there, but it's the biggest monster that it can be. So you're not going to luck out and fight level 1 and win the game. But it's a monster you know where it's at, and you can kind of choose when you're ready to fight it if you get that far up on the track.
Or when you think everyone else is in a worse place for you to fight it.
If someone else tried to win and threw all their bad cards at the last player, then maybe it is the time for you to flip it over and try to kill God.
Nice. Because I was going to ask, with the amount of Munchkin games that have come out, it must be difficult trying to keep each one to be fresh and not just, oh, this is this game with just a name tag on it.
Yeah, it depends on kind of what we're trying to do with an individual product. Like we put out a few little 30 card expansions that were just themed around like goats or turtles or horses or snakes
Right.
or whatever. And that's just like a kind of freshening for your deck. Like if you've been playing Deluxe Munchkin with maybe Munchkin 2 or 4 or something tossed in there. And also it's a chance for someone who doesn't know anything about Munchkin that knows that's what you like to just buy something like that that has the name Munchkin on it, and is something they might like. They might be able to check with your spouse or something and be like, do they own Munchkin horses? Because I'm at the store and they have that there.
Yeah. Well, like the
But
Munchkin
the bigger it
Omicron.
gets, yeah. But the bigger it gets, like things like the core Shadowrun game or that kind of stuff, we always try to put a little bit of a twist on it. But we also have quite a few mechanics to pull from. Like
Right.
we have the traditional D&D stuff of you're a class and you're a race or whatever, but powers exist in a few different Munchkin Supers and a few different things, and that's how we did Axe Cop when we were looking at doing Munchkin Axe Cop, which is from over a decade ago, and
Still one of the I've given away a lot of my Munchkin games, but I still have Munchkin Axe Cop because Axe Cop is great.
Yeah, but Axe Cop, we took the mechanics that we had that best fit the concept of Axe Cop, especially the fact that you can change from being a flute cop to a unicorn cop to an avocado cop or whatever. It was already kind of Munchkin coded.
Yeah.
We just had to find the right combination of Munchkin mechanics. So sometimes we come up with something new, like the Matrix cards in this, but also Munchkin Shadowrun has powers like Super Munchkin because that fit a little better. You're not necessarily stuck as being one thing in Shadowrun. You can have a little bit of magic and a little bit of hacking and a little bit of something else. So we decided to do that instead of just having classes like you would have in a more traditional fantasy RPG D&D kind of riff.
So were you I don't remember what the timing was, but given that you're a big Warhammer fan, did that line up with you being there for the Munchkin 40K and Age of Sigmar?
It did not at the launch.
Oh.
The Munchkin 40K came out in 2018, and I didn't come back to the company until 2021. But I have written a couple of Munchkin Warhammer expansions since I've been there. I got to do the dungeon expansions, which if you're not a experienced Munchkin player, dungeon cards are twice the size of a regular card, and they're global. They affect the entire table, so it's the dungeon of something, and the whole group is in it. And I put out I wrote the 40K and Age of Sigmar versions of that, and the 40K version of it was planets. So
nice.
all the famous planets from the 40K universe, Ultramar and Badab and Holy Terra and all those kind of things, are the dungeon cards. So as you're playing 40K Munchkin, you're also jumping around between all the planets that you've heard of if you're a 40K fan.
How was that?
And I have another one that's in the final approval stages right now.
Nice.
That's just gonna be a regular Munchkin 40K expansion coming soon.
How is that working on that as like a fan of something, and it's like I know all the jokes, I get to put in all the jokes.
It is like I said earlier, it was really interesting to learn things about the industry as a fan. It is the most strange feeling. I technically have put something in White Dwarf magazine, the Games Workshop magazine, because they wanted to do a promo Munchkin card as part of like a big bagged edition of the celebration issue of the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote a really terrible joke Munchkin promo card that went into there, and I have that copy. And on the bag on the outside, it says like Munchkin card included. And as a kid in the 90s reading White Dwarf magazines while I played 40K in my parents' basement, I would have never imagined that anything I ever did would have ended up in that magazine, let alone something as silly as a Munchkin promo card. So, yeah, it's very weird.
Okay. So does it ever get weird? Because I also feel like Munchkin also ends up being the butt of many jokes in the gaming industry. Does it ever feel weird
Sure.
being on that as well?
No, because I'll try not to offend anybody, but there's a lot of people out there that forget what we are doing when we sit down at a table to play a game,
Right.
right? We're trying to have fun. And I don't want to tell somebody that it's not fun in a general sense to sit down at a game with 18 something something in the title and it's about trains where you're building a track from here to there in North Carolina and trying to, ship apricots or whatever. But I'm bored to death when those kind of games hit the table, and I've hardly ever played them because it's not my thing. I don't like train schedules and shipment optimization and all those kind of things that the 18xx crowd of train like gamers loves. And it's fine for them to love that. And I'm glad those things exist. But not everybody wants to play those games. And the thing that we give people as Munchkin is if you love gaming, right? If you would rather spend every weekend of your life sitting around a table playing board games with people, but you don't have enough friends to do that, you probably have some nerd adjacent friends that like something, right? Especially if you're talking about 40K right now. A ton of people interact with the 40K hobby in a larger sense by reading novels about it or playing video games. Like, right, Space Marine 2 was a gigantic success. And I've heard on YouTube and other places, game store owners and stuff talking about this guy came in like completely no knowledge of anything and wanted to know how to play 40K because he just finished Space Marine 2 and wanted more interaction with the 40K universe and realized it's a game and wants to learn more. So if you have fans that or friends that love playing Space Marine 2, but they're not ready to dive into a full paint a 2,000 point army of Space Marines,
or can't afford
then,
that,
or can't afford that, maybe they would sit down with you and play a card game, a silly card game with references that they would understand, right? So it's we get to be that gateway drug to a certain extent, and that bridge between different elements of the larger nerd hobby of people that think Cthulhu's cool, but they don't want to sit down and play a really complicated game of Arkham Horror or Cthulhu, whatever the Risk style war game is called, Cthulhu something.
Cthulhu Wars, I think it is.
Cthulhu Wars, yeah. But there's other ones bouncing around in my head title-wise that have the word Cthulhu in it. Oh, yeah, Cthulhu Wars. But you could probably get them to play Munchkin Cthulhu because it's less of a commitment and it's sillier, and they cannot treat it so seriously. So it never bothers me really when people are like, "Oh, Munchkin's not even a game. You should be playing something serious." And it's like, well, let people have fun.
Yeah,
it's fine for everyone to have fun the way they want to have fun. And you can have those days where you're like, I want to play Twilight Imperium for the next 12 hours, right? Where I don't want to sleep until the Twilight Imperium game is finished. And you can have those days where you're like, can we just play a card game before D&D starts? Because Bob's always late and it's going to be an hour. We know we have an hour. Is there something we can play while we wait? And we could just throw this card game on the table. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't end when the other person shows up to play D&D. Just sweep the cards back off the table, put them in the box, and get it out next time. It's not the end of the world if you don't finish a game of Munchkin, right? If you were just playing it to have fun while you were waiting on something else.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And it's not like it's a fair point because clearly people are buying it. So it's not like, you're just putting it out there just to put it out there. Like the people playing it might not be the people that's on Board Game Geek voting up their next thing, but clearly people are buying it because otherwise you wouldn't have the money to make the next one. So
yeah,
it sells.
My wife likes to jokingly accuse me of being a game snob, but when I boil it all the way down to the most bedrock feelings I have about the hobby in general, I want everybody to have fun playing something that is fun to them, right? I don't want to just say, no, you're not a part. It's like are mobile gamers video gamers? Are people who play Candy Crush Saga, are they video gamers? Well, yes, they are because they're interacting with a video game. Maybe you don't think because you're a Call of Duty hardcore, competitive gamer that Candy Crush is not a game. And we can talk about, all of the weirdness and addictiveness and predatory practices of some of the mobile companies. But that's not the the bedrock of it all, right? Are they interacting with a video game as
Yes.
fun? They are. They're video gamers. So, like, why can't we have a larger tent where everybody's invited to have their kind of fun? And maybe as someone who starts to understand how board games or video games or miniatures games works, they will eventually get to your level if that's the journey that they want to take. But if not, it doesn't matter as long as they're having fun. And we just want to be a part of that in some capacity.
Yeah. No, yeah, no. I had a thought and now it's gone. Yeah. Is there going to be the original Munchkin was that 2001?
2001. Yeah.
Okay. So that means next year would be the 25th anniversary, wouldn't
Yes.
it? I got to
I would
imagine
like to
there's
point out the only reason I know that it's 21 is because I clicked on the big box on the website. And it was like board gaming since 2001.
Yep.
so there's got to be something big in the works for that.
The standard answer to that question is we don't talk about unannounced products.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
So
Did
what?
you do a bunch of? Did we like? We don't.
Yes, I try to say it as jokingly as possible, but we don't publicly talk about unannounced products until we decide to publicly talk about them. And if anything theoretically big is happening anytime in the next 5 to 10 years, you don't know about it because I'm not going to say anything about it
Yeah.
until I'm ready to say something about it. But that's not right now. If indeed anything actually is happening, we're not ready to talk about it.
Yep. So what has been your favorite Munchkin piece that you've had a chance to work on?
Besides the 40K stuff of just having been a 40K fan for decades, played it off and on, but always enjoyed it as a general thing. My favorite is the strangest little thing. So before I got back to the company, they decided to make some Munchkin polyhedral sets.
Okay.
So D20, D10, D like RPG sets of dice with the little spike head horned helmet guy on the highest number of all of them. They got those made in I think 5 different colors, I think. And they were at the factory being finalized, and one of the very first conversations I was part of when I came back to the company was somebody was like, "Hey, is that product just cards or is there something else in it?" And the answer was no, they're just the dice. They're just some polyhedral dice. So the next question was, well, should we put some Munchkin cards in there? Like, would people be more excited to get some new Munchkin cards and some RPG dice or whatever? So we as a company decided, yes, we're going to put some cards in there, and I got to write them. And it was just me being ridiculously silly because there were multiple colors sets of dice. And there were, of course, the different polyhedral sizes, right? So I wrote a card for each of the die sizes for each of the colors.
Nice.
So there is a red D20 and a green D20 and a black D20 and a brown D20.
So that would be what, 35 different cards?
Something like that. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, so when you buy if you buy the red set, you get the red set of cards that just shuffles into your doors and your treasure decks. But when those cards come up, they also interact with dice. Like they are monsters that's levels are set by dice rolling. They are items that have a random bonus depending on a dice roll, that kind of stuff. And if you are the hardest core of hardcore fans, or you're a collector that likes shiny dice, if you buy all of the different color sets, you're not getting the same cards over and over again. You're getting a thematically green set that goes with the green dice, or so like in the red set, like one of the cards is like evil tomatoes because it's red. So we also thematically tied all of them into the colors of the dice that you were buying them with. But that was silly fun because part of the thing that gets me going as a game designer isn't like pie in the sky, my own ideas. It is coming up with the answers to questions. So when someone said, what kind of cards could we put in these dice sets? That was the kind of thing I like doing as a game designer. was coming up with what that means, what those cards are, what they do, how they're associated with the dice, what the goofy jokes and references are.
I really like the green ones that look like very gelatinous ooze.
Yeah, they're very slime coated. They got little flecks floating in them,
Yeah.
and they are yellow ink with green plastic.
Like the other ones just kind of look like regular dice, but then you get to those and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, the other ones are like classic, like pearlized,
Right.
regular in quotation marks dice, but the green ones are the closest to slime, and they're the most translucent.
Right.
But I didn't get to pick any of that stuff, right? That was already done. Like those were being wrapped up at the factory and the packaging was about to get printed. So I came into the process at the end and was just handed a target to hit and got to like go wild and do whatever I wanted to come up with those cards for those sets.
Gotcha. So, what's the next biggest? So right now we've got, you talked about Shadowrun. I see there's already the first expansion, Hack the Future.
Yeah.
Looks like the Dire Domains. I'm assuming that's the dungeons for Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, Age of Sigmar is realms and cities and stuff, so
Right.
that's what's in that deck.
So what else is coming on the horizon for Munchkin?
So the biggest thing, literally, biggest figuratively and literally, the big box is getting into people's hands or has already gotten into people's hands. The fulfillment of that, which is a Munchkin box large enough to hold lots and lots and lots of cards with a vacuum form insert, like to organize your cards with, and it's Munchkin 1 through 6 plus a bunch of other cards.
Oh man!
And if you were if you backed it during the crowdfund, you also got a loot box that had like a lanyard and a pin and a patch and a dice bag and a whole bunch of other stuff.
And of course,
As
it
part
looks
of
like
this,
the red box.
Yes, and we also wanted to do that ultimate, like D&D inspired Munchkin to exist to a certain extent. So we when we were talking about like theming the whole thing around red, we were like, well, what can we do? And we talked to John Kovalik, the artist, and he worked with us back and forth on various ideas, and one of them was to kind of reference the original red box art of the sword guy fighting the red dragon. So we put our own spin on it. And there's like an acrylic pen of that art in there and other stuff. But there's also, I have to keep a track in my head, I'm not very good at it. There's a loot box that was part of the backers thing, and then there's the regular store release version of that box. And everything that was in the loot box is not in that regular store release version.
Gotcha.
Unless your store also backed it and might have got some of those rewards too.
So you
But check
can
with your local store.
you can still get the big box, at least a
The big
version
box-
of the big box.
Yeah, I don't know if it's even in stores yet or if it's on its way to stores, because I think fulfillment for it. I think it might come out officially in like July. Don't
Gotcha.
quote me on anything. My job is making the games, not necessarily marketing or selling the games.
Philip, surprised you didn't get this.
What's that? There was
There were
there might have
bills.
been a Power Ranger Kickstarter around that time.
Oh, I think that was
Yeah.
legit. I think that was.
Which
We brought it
Brings
up.
me into my other thing, Munchkin Power Rangers. Just gonna throw that out there.
Hey, anything and everything is possible. And just like we don't talk about unannounced products, we don't generally speculate on brand deals that don't exist, because we don't want to. I don't want someone to accidentally be listening to this while they're driving and hear, "Oh, Munchkin Power Rangers is coming out next year." Right? That's the first problem. And the second
Yeah.
problem is, if we speculate on how it could work, then if we come up with a better idea or a different idea, or the licensed people are like, "No, you can't do that. You have to do it this way," then we've kind of got expectations set wrong. So no. But I would love, as the person in charge to a certain extent of writing Munchkin cards, like Steve of Steve Jackson Games still writes a lot of Munchkin cards and is still in charge of stuff. But I write a lot as the line editor, who's kind of the project manager of Munchkin, who's making sure that things are moving along and people are getting the things they need in the art. People are talking to the production people and that kind of stuff. I would love to play around in a whole bunch of different brands. It'd be a lot of fun to take something that exists as a well-known brand enough, because we don't want to make, Munchkin something some guy thought of 10 years ago that no one cared about, unless it's funny. But it'd be really, really fun to play around in a giant brand like Doctor Who or Power Rangers or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But all that also comes to licensing and budgets, and
That's where it's got to be
if someone
easier
else-
when it's got to be easier when you're doing like a category where it's like we can joke,
Sure.
we can make all those jokes, but it's in our own sandbox and we don't have to wait on the
Yeah.
licensing. When you have
Yeah.
like the cow, the Good, the Bad, and the Munchkin, or
Yeah, it is way easier to write a Munchkin set that's about nothing in particular, besides like goats or like when you were looking on the screen and Dead and Deader is on there, which is a 56 card set around ghosts and ghost fighting and that kind of stuff. It's way easier to write that than it would be to write the Ghostbusters Munchkin set, because we'd have to make sure that especially art. When you're working
Yeah.
with a licensor, all the art stuff is very complicated getting it approved.
Oh yeah.
But we also made Munchkin Batman. So, anything and everything is possible with enough, agreement on all sides.
of course. Now I heard you say a Munchkin set about nothing, and now I'm like Seinfeld Munchkin.
Hey, like I said, anything is possible.
All the door cards are just Kramer doing. Never mind. I'll stop.
At least one of them is.
Yeah. All right. Well, where is the best place for people to go to find out the latest and greatest for Munchkin?
sjgames.com is the company's website. We have a blog there that is officially recognized as like one of the longest running corporate blogs on the internet, because the Daily Illuminator started, I don't even remember when, started 2 decades ago or more, and we've done a daily update every day of some sort of brand new text about something for this whole time. So yeah, any official announcements come out on the front page of sjgames.com. There's also where you can link to our store, Warehouse 23, to buy all the stuff directly from us if that's what you want to do. And sometimes there's exclusives on there that you can't buy in stores. If it's something that we don't think we could sell at a large enough like print run or for a good enough margin for stores to carry, we'll sometimes do it as a web store exclusive. So we can sell it, we can give it to the fans, but we couldn't make it work, a distribution market or whatever like that.
Right, like a print on demand kind of thing.
A little bit. We do print on demand for some of our GURPS books. We also use various crowdfunding sites for mostly Kickstarter, but we're starting to play around with other crowdfunding sites now. So
Right.
But if you're looking for information about us that we put out officially directly, it's sjgames.com and the Daily Illuminator page. And it's also archived, and you can get it as an RSS feed emailed to you, I'm pretty sure, and that kind of stuff. So you can be kept in the loop of whatever we're doing.
All
August
right.
1, 1995 is what it says on the webpage.
Oof.
Okay, yeah.
So 30 years?
Yep, I knew it had been going for a long time. I just could not remember what the day it started. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, Philip, I'm going to hit the button here and roll that beautiful beam footage.
And that's been our show. We want to thank Mr. Will Schoonover. Said the last name correctly.
Nice. Good job.
From Steve Jackson Games for hanging out with us, putting up with Chris's shenanigans. If you like what you see, you got to check us out, boardsandswords.com. It's got the links to our YouTube channel, the schedule for when we post. It's also got the link to our Patreon. You can support us, help support the show. There's a whole bunch of bonuses on there. Check it out, patreon.com/boardsandswords, and you can find all that stuff on boardsandswords.com.
All right. Feedback at boardsandswords.com. I feel like that epic rap battles of history where it's like, who's won? Who's next? You decide. Except for in this case, it's who we interview next on the show. Feedback at boardsandswords.com. Philip already mentioned all the website. You can also find us on Blue Sky at boardsandswords.com, just like the websites. Like I said, Philip mentioned it's got all the links with the Patreon, and everything's available at boardsandswords.com. Check it out. Help support the show. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another show. I'm looking over my notes. Next time, we're actually going to have Mark Henry from the website Goblin's Hut, who, if you're a miniatures gamer, you might have known that if you've ever seen a product called Dirty Down. That is the American retailer for the Dirty Down products from over in the UK. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Talked with him a lot at Nova Open last year, and finally had a chance to get him on the show. So that'll be in 2 weeks. So remember, in the meantime, remember that every gamer has a story. And now I need to go blow the dust off of my Munchkin sets. Alrighty, thank you so much.
Yeah, I thought I had lost you guys for a second because the feed froze and I couldn't hear anything, and then you came back and said it was your fault. So I was
though it was very much like there was a time it was like burp 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 burp. I was like uh-oh. But at the same time, it's like I'm just watching it. Like, other than shutting everything down and starting back up, that would be like the internet. That was just like, I'm just gonna like cross my fingers and hope that it's just a spike.
Start killing background processes. Like Steam can go, Google Drive can go, OneDrive can go. Stop it.
Well, I usually cut off all that. So yeah. But awesome. Thanks everybody in the chat. I'm gonna stop the stream now. And then we'll be in the Discord for the Bonus Bits channel here in a minute.